So the Punisher One Last Kill finally brings John Bernthal's Frank Castle back into the spotlight. And according to early reaction, Marvel Studios may have delivered exactly the kind of story the character needed after years of uncertainty. Following the end of Daredevil Born Again Season 2, fans were left wondering what Marvel planned to do with Frank next. Instead of immediately throwing him into another crossover, the MCU chose to give the character a standalone Disney Plus special presentation, and it sounds like the result is a darker, more emotional evolution of the Punisher than audiences have seen before. What makes One Last Kill stand out is that it reportedly doesn't just rely on brutal violence or nostalgia. The project leans heavily into the psychological weight Frank Castle carries after years of trauma, revenge, and isolation. John Bernthal once again proves why so many fans consider him the definitive live action Punisher. Ever since his debut in Daredevil Season 2 on Netflix, Bernthal has managed to portray Frank as more than just a violent anti hero. Underneath the rage and bloodshed is a deeply damaged man who has never truly recovered from losing his family, and One Last Kill apparently pushes that emotional side harder than ever. The review highlights that this may be the most vulnerable version of Frank Castle audiences have seen in the MCU so far. Rather than presenting him as an unstoppable killing machine, the story reportedly shows him at his absolute lowest point, even including scenes where he nearly takes his own life. That emotional direction gives the special a very different tone from previous Punisher appearances and helps separate it from the repetitive formula many comic book projects fall into. Instead of simply recycling Frank's usual hunt criminals and shoot everyone storyline, One Last Kill focuses on whether Frank can ever truly escape being the Punisher at all. At the same time, Marvel clearly hasn't abandoned the brutal action fans expect from the character. Despite airing on Disney Plus, the special still reportedly includes plenty of bloody violence that honors the darker tone of the original Netflix series. The difference now is that the violence seems to serve a more reflective purpose. Frank isn't just fighting enemies anymore, he's confronting the possibility that his entire identity has become inseparable from pain and death. One of the most interesting elements mentioned is the return of familiar supporting characters. Jason R. Moore reprises his role as Curtis Hoyle, reminding viewers that Frank isn't completely alone despite constantly pushing people away. There's also another surprise cameo that reportedly reconnects Frank with one of his closest allies from the Netflix era. According to that, the reunion scene may end up having major consequences for Daredevil's future moving forward, especially if Frank appears in Daredevil Born Again Season 3. The story primary antagonist is Ma Nuki, played by Judith Light, whose performance is described as genuinely chilling. Her involvement forces Frank's violent past back into his life just as he appears to be searching for some kind of new direction. Even though nobody realistically expected Marvel to permanently kill off the Punisher, the special apparently feels almost like a rebirth for the character. Frank still embraces violence, but the review suggests his philosophy and approach may begin evolving going forward. Another major reason One Last Kill matters is because it acts as a bridge to Frank Castle's cinematic future in the MCU. John Bernthal is already confirmed to appear in Spider-Man Brand New Day, marking the Punisher's first appearance in Marvel Studios movie. This special reportedly helps make that transition feel natural rather than random fan service. Instead of dropping Frank into Spider Man's world without context, Marvel uses One Last Kill to re establish where the character emotionally stands before he enters a large interconnected storyline. The setup also addresses one of the biggest concerns fans had after Bernthal's return was announced, whether Marvel would water down the Punisher to fit a more mainstream MCU tone. Based on this review, One Last Kill suggests the studio is trying to preserve the darker identity of the character while still integrating him into the broader franchise. Frank may now exist in the same universe as Spider Man and Avengers, but Marvel apparently understands that he cannot lose the brutality and emotional damage that define him. In the end, The Punisher One Last Kill sounds less like a simple continuation of the Netflix series and more like a turning point for Frank Castle in the MCU. It serves as both a character study and a reset, exploring whether someone as broken as Frank can ever truly move forward without abandoning the identity that has consumed his life for years. More importantly, it seems to prove that Marvel still knows exactly why Banthal's version of the Punisher resonates so strongly with audience. Thank you for watching. Bye.